Welcome to the Rock and Wellness Podcast, the show that takes you on a voyage to better health, wellness, and happiness that will rock your world. With me, Rachel Joy Olson, your host, your coach, and your biggest fan. Welcome to episode 44 of the Rock and Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Rachel Joy Olson. The purpose of this podcast is to share with you information that will support your journey to better health and wellness. In today's episode, you will learn all about some of my favorite tools for the kitchen that I feel everyone needs to have in a well-functioning kitchen. First, I want to ask you, do you like being in the kitchen? And then why or why not? I never used to like being in the kitchen. So for those of you who are thinking, hell no, my stove is used for storage, right? I used to be the same. I'm not really sure why though, because I grew up with women like my mom and grandmothers who were amazing cooks and spent a lot of time in the kitchen. I often helped them cooking our meals when I was a young girl, but as I got older, especially as a teen, and when I lived on my own, I would default to grilled cheese sandwiches, noodle soups, and other basic dishes. I never really gave cooking at a different level or higher level much thought. Fast forward to my mid-20s, and I find myself in front of a counselor who says I need to develop a more positive relationship with food to help ease an eating disorder I had been struggling with for a long, long time, and I took her advice to heart. I pulled out a variety of cookbooks and started to look through them. About that same time, I had become a vegetarian, so the options that I knew of were a little slim as the movement wasn't as popular back then, about 20 some years ago, as it is today. But I started to learn and have a lot of fun with it. When I went vegan, which was over a decade ago now, that's when my passion for cooking really started to kick in. I began to experiment with different ingredients and started to build the tools I needed to make the delicious dishes I was creating. I was having so much fun with creating different meals, and my friends and family were loving what I was making. And that's when I was inspired to write my first book called The Magic of Living Nutrition. This book is a collection of over 200 recipes that I was making on a regular basis back then. For any of you who have ever spent any time in the kitchen, I'm sure you will agree that when you're in the kitchen creating delicious meals, it's much more fun and easy when you have the right tools. So that's why today I want to share with you a variety of the tools that I have found make creating delicious, healthy meals easier and more fun. These tools will make it easier and more enjoyable for you so you can create the best tasting meals with ease. As I mentioned many years ago, I became vegan, and to heighten my knowledge of how to properly eat in this way, I took a raw vegan chef certification because I was obsessed with learning how to make the most delicious yet healthy meals. For any of you who eat a whole food plant-based diet, you know that cutting up vegetables is inevitable. It's not a job that everyone likes to do. And so many times I'd be annoyed and frustrated with my cheap, dull knives or my food processor that burned out on me every second use and my blender that hardly broke down food. So I started researching a variety of knives, blenders, food processors, juicers, and other tools that I feel are must-haves in a well-functioning kitchen. Soon I decided it was time to up my game and invest in some really great kitchen equipment and tools, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. All right, so let's get into the list of what I think are some of the essential tools for your kitchen. Although you definitely don't need all of these tools, and you could probably get by with what you already have, from my own personal experience, these tools will make food prep and cooking so much easier for you. All right, so the first one is a high quality knife set. I can't express to you the difference having a good quality knife makes when it comes to cutting, peeling, and chopping. When I got my first really good set of knives, all I actually wanted to do was chop veggies. Suddenly, this was a fun task that so many people, including myself, hated doing. You'd be wondering, well, what are the best knives? Now, I definitely, there's high-end chef knives out there that you could definitely get, and there's some beautiful sets out there. I personally don't use uber expensive knives, but my favorite affordable knife brands, number one is Cutco. And I used to purchase these off of a friend of mine, and I love them. I fell in love with them. They have a lifetime guarantee, and they're so sharp. Another couple of knives that I do have are from Pampered Chef, and many of you probably know a Pampered Chef rep, and you can easily get them. So those are really great knives, and both those knives, they're not only beautiful, but they come with excellent guarantees. Although these knives require some initial investment, they are worth every penny. So they are a little bit more than, you might want to spend. So let's say $100 or $200 for a chef's knife seems a lot, but you'll love it and it'll last forever. Just remember, you don't need to start with the full set. Choose 1 or 2 knives that you use on a regular basis and start there. Like I really only use probably 4 knives, even 3 knives on a regular basis. So one of my absolute favorite knives is the chef's knife. And the chef's knife, I have a smaller one and a larger one, and I love them both. I think my go-to used to be the big chef's knife, but it's now the smaller chef's knife. I find it's very good to handle and cuts things really nice. So chef's knife, I would say definitely. The Santoku, I used to always call that the Santoku knife, but the Santoku knife, I believe I'm saying that correctly now, is a great knife for chopping as well. That's another kind of, you can get a bigger one or smaller Santoku. These ones, the chefs and Santoku, are great for when you're chopping large vegetables. Let's say carrots, cucumbers, broccoli, cauliflower, the big veggies, things like that. The next one would be the paring knife. So the paring knife is perfect when you just need to, peel something small. Let's say you need to just kind of, peel a garlic, or you're taking the tops off strawberries or something like that. A paring knife, nice and small, really great knife for coring and getting into things. Really great knife. And then I would say a bread knife or some sort of serrated knife. Again, I have a bigger one and a smaller one. These are kind of a must-have if you like to cut fresh bread, or I actually really like to cut tomatoes with these, but of course the nice chef's knives that's really sharpened nicely will do a tomato as well. But a nice serrated knife is really great as well. Of course, it does depend on, and that's one thing I learned when you go to a high-end knife set, is that there is a knife for everything. Right? You can get a knife to cut cheese for small jobs, for big jobs. So I would suggest seeking out somebody who maybe sells Pampered Chef or Cutco, or, go to a store that sells high-end knives and just ask them, what are these for? If you're not sure, I really enjoyed that education because I had no idea there was a knife for everything. I thought, when I grew up, I thought a knife was a knife is a knife kind of thing. So definitely number 1, a high quality knife set for sure. I would say that would be the number 1 investment. It will make all the difference in the world. And once you get your own high-end knives, you're not going to want to use cheap, crappy knives anymore. So look into that. The next great tool that you're going to want to invest in is a high-speed blender. I got to say, if you don't already have a Vitamix, you are missing out. I am known, or used to be really known when I did my cooking classes and such, but known by many as the smoothie master. I would go to, every time I would do a smoothie making party, people were just in awe of how smooth and tasty my smoothies are. And as much as I want to take all the credit, I can't. I know how to put the perfect ratio of ingredients into the blender, and which ingredients to use, but place those same ingredients in a regular old blender and it just wouldn't be the same. So my preferred choice and recommended blender is by far the Vitamix. And yes, for those of you who know Vitamix, they are a considerable investment, but they are worth every penny. There are so many things you can do with this blender. You can make smoothies, soups, dressings, and so much more. And it will also come with a recipe book to get you started. So it's kind of a great way to get started there. There are some other great high-speed blenders out there as well. The NutriBullet is pretty good. It's just not as big, although I think they do have a bigger one now. And then I think there's a couple others as well. So, do your research, but the Vitamix by far is one of my favorite tools that's used all the time in my kitchen. The third tool I recommend is a high quality food processor. Now, you may not think you need a food processor, especially if you do have a Vitamix or you might not think you need one that costs a few $100s, but when you get a high quality, high-end food processor, you will wonder what you ever did without it. Yes, you can definitely work with a cheap, low quality food processor, but if you use it a lot, you'll likely burn out the motor. Like, just imagine this. You are in the creative process and the perfect dish is coming together nicely. You have all the ingredients in your food processor. You press the button, it starts going, and then suddenly it stops. What are you going to do? You have company coming over and you want to make the perfect dinner. So you rush out to the store and end up buying one of the top models in the store to ensure this never happens again. This may not have happened to you or may not ever happen to you, but that exact thing happened to me. Exactly how I told it. When I started using my brand new high quality food processor, it was so much better that I literally vowed to inspire others to invest in a good one so they never had to experience what I went through. And I know, okay, it sounds a bit dramatic, but it's true. So my favorite brand of food processor right now is the Cuisinart. When I did my research, it looks like the KitchenAid is close in quality as well and likely may also be a great choice. So do your research, see which one you can get on a great deal. When I bought mine, this was a few years ago, it was about $400. So it's a significant investment, but you will likely have it forever. Okay, so the third tool I recommend is a high quality food processor. Now, the fourth tool that I recommend is a mandolin slicer. I think it's sometimes called different things, but I think for the most part, it's called a mandolin slicer. I do use my mandolin slicer quite a bit, especially when I want to have a certain cut or a certain slice, although I do really like to use my knife, especially if you've got that good knife. But if you're cutting up large amounts of vegetables, you want to cut them perfectly or in a special way, such as a julienne cut, like for French fries, or a flat cut in circles or coins, the mandolin slicer is the best tool to have in your cupboard. But just a word of caution though, if you've never used a mandolin slicer or if you go to use a mandolin slicer, just make sure that you use the hand guard that it comes with, because if you don't, you may slice off a good chunk of your finger, right? And it does happen. I've done it before. I tend to get a little lazy on using the hand guard, but you will use more of your vegetable as well, and you just will save yourself from getting a nice big slice. So the fourth tool, mandolin slicer, definitely a great tool to have in the kitchen. Now, the fifth tool to have in your kitchen, and this is something that I wouldn't say you need to have. This probably wouldn't be my top one. It used to be. I've kind of changed my mind a little bit on it though, but I wanted to share it here because I think it's something that we all should probably have in the kitchen, and that is a juicer. Now, I started my plant-based journey by drinking fruit and veggie juice every day. That was one recommendation from a naturopath, and she asked, are you drinking freshly made, green juices and vegetable juices? And I hadn't been. So she really started me off on that great journey. But if you never have tried just a freshly made green juice, it is so refreshing, hydrating, and nourishing that it's almost like your eyes brighten up the minute you drink it. Now, juicers can be expensive. They can range from about $100 to $3,000. I personally don't think it's necessary to spend thousands of dollars on a juicer when a less expensive one will do just fine, but it definitely depends on what you want to juice. So if you want to juice things like root vegetables and fruits, then a centrifugal juicer like a Breville will work fine. And I'll talk to you about what a centrifugal juicer is as compared to a different type of juicer. But if you want to juice more leafy greens as well as fruits and root vegetables, that'll do that as well. I recommend a slow juicer like a Huron or an Omega. For wheatgrass, I would actually get a wheatgrass juicer. I know that I did get a slow juicer that was apparently designed to do wheatgrass as well, and it just doesn't do a very good job. So if you're a wheatgrass fan or you're thinking about starting to do more wheatgrass and drink more wheatgrass, because it's by far one of the best things out there, and you can listen to a previous podcast where I talk about all the amazing benefits of wheatgrass juice. But get the right juicer for it, otherwise you're just wasting your wheatgrass. So there's two types of juicers that I talked about, the centrifugal juicer and the slow juicer. So let's go over what the difference is, because it's really important to know the difference. Now, a centrifugal juice extractor is what it's called. They're the most common type of home juicer. It has a fast spinning blade that spins against a mesh filter using centrifugal force to pull the juice from the flesh of the fruit or vegetables. The problem with this type of juicer is that the speed at which the juice is extracted can destroy some of the enzymes, and the heat from the juicer may oxidize the nutrients in the fruits and vegetables. And so it's really important if you use a centrifugal juicer that you are drinking the juice right away, because it won't last very long. It's all these kinds of juices or juicers are also unable to process nuts or leafy greens. Leafy greens especially just fly right through the juicer. So you're going to be wasting all those wonderful greens. I would say the only benefit of this type of juicer is that it's usually more affordable than the cold press or slow juicer. So the cold press or masticating juicer, it's called, extracts the juice by crushing and pressing the fruit and vegetables to yield the most juice. Because there's no heat produced, the enzymes and nutrients stay intact. This is a perfect type of juicer for juicing dark leafy greens, making fresh nut milks, and it's quieter than the centrifugal juicer. It's also a bigger investment. Okay, so this one's much more expensive. So the one I got, I think I have the Huron. It cost me about $500, and then the high-end slow juicers, wheatgrass juicers can be upwards of about $3,000. So they're quite a bit. Now, let's say you have a Vitamix and you want to do juicing. Personally, I love using the Vitamix. It's kind of like a centrifugal juicer though, because it is high speed and can, destroy some of the enzymes and cellular tissue in the juice. But if you're drinking it right away, it's perfect. So if you are going to juice in a blender, you put everything you want in there with a little bit of water, not much, just enough to cover the vegetables. And then from there, you would strain it. So I just use a mesh strainer or a nut milk bag and strain the juice out. It's kind of a great way to get away from investing in a separate juicer. But again, it just depends on what you're looking at, okay, and what you want to do. So the fifth recommended tool is a juicer. The sixth recommended tool is a dehydrator. Now, this is a tool you can use to keep your food raw. So you can make crackers and different things like that. So when a food is considered raw, kind of in the raw food world, it's cooked at temperatures lower than about 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, until I became a raw vegan chef, I had no idea what lovely raw foods I could make in the dehydrator. So snacks like kale chips, some of my favorite, raw crackers, dried fruit, and granola taste so much better when they've been dehydrated as opposed to being cooked in the oven. Being dehydrated also keeps the nutrition intact, where unfortunately, cooking in the oven does destroy a lot of the nutrients. Now, my favorite dehydrator is the Excalibur. When I bought mine, this is quite a few years ago now, it costs about $400. It depends on the size that you get. There can be, I've got a big one, and but you can get a smaller one, and it's well worth the money. You can do so many cool things with it. I even know though now that some ovens are actually coming equipped with dehydrators. So that's pretty cool. So if you're in the market for a new oven, get one that has a dehydrator. You're going to be able to do so many cool things with that. So the sixth tool I recommend is the dehydrator. But if you're just getting started and you want to kind of know where to prioritize your money and your investments, the dehydrator is certainly not something you need right away, but it's definitely something you're going to want to acquire eventually. Now, the seventh tool I recommend is a spiralizer. Spiralizer is a fun tool to have in the kitchen. So this cool little tool will have you making fancy raw zucchini dishes and topping salads, just like a professional chef, with spiraled carrots and beets. So basically, it turns your food into little spirals. So there's many different kinds of spiralizers. Some can get pretty pricey, but over the years, they have gotten a lot cheaper. I think the one that I have originally was about $50 or $60, and now you can find it in the stores for about $20. So these things are nowhere near as expensive as they used to be because they're a little bit more popular now. So the seventh tool would be the spiralizer. Cool thing to have. You can make lots of neat little things with that. I personally love it the best for like raw noodles, like zucchini noodles and carrots and beets. Those are my favorite ways to use the spiralizer. The next tool, the eighth tool, would be glass jars. I'm a huge fan of mason jars, or really glass jars in general. I use them for so many things. So the large mason jars, well, you can get really large ones. I think those big ones are about 4 liters or so, and they're perfect for sprouting seeds such as sunflower, buckwheat, pea shoots, any sort of sprouting that you want to do. You can also get maybe 1 liter jars, which I love to drink my morning waters out of because they're 1 liter. I know exactly how much I'm drinking. But you can also, in any of the big jars or medium jars, keep flour, sugar, spices, and other ingredients that usually come in a bag. And you can put these, the bagged goods into the jars so that your cupboards look really tidy and clean. I love, opening my cupboards and seeing those glass jars because it makes it look better and more tidy than all those different bags. Now, I've hosted fun events like salad in a jar parties where everybody brings, let's say, 5 jars, a couple of ingredients, and you make salads to last a few days. So glass jars are a great way to kind of make and take your salads or food or anything on the go. So overnight oats and chia puddings and things have become really popular over the years, and glass jars are the perfect way to use them. Now, for those of you who do listen to my podcast on a regular basis, you know that I love to use essential oils, especially in drinking waters and different recipes, but it's really important that if you are putting essential oils in your waters or drinks or things like that, or even food, that you do store it in a glass or stainless steel jar, not plastic. So glass jars, having a ton of them around is a really great way to store your food and really eat your food. So the 8th tool that you're going to want to have on just really a regular basis are some glass jars. The next one, number 9, would be cutting boards, a really great high quality cutting board. So, really, you've got your beautiful set of new knives and you're going to want to get chopping, and a nice cutting board will be essential. So I truly prefer the wood cutting boards as they are easier on the knives as opposed to a glass cutting board. So glass boards look really nice, but man, they're hard on your knives. They're really tough on your knives. I do have some smaller, kind of more plastic sheets that act like cutting boards that are easy to put in and out of the cupboard. But there's nothing like a big, beautiful block wood cutting board. They are expensive, or they can get fairly pricey. And they do take a little effort to take care of. You do have to oil them and make sure they're clean and that sort of thing. But it is so nice using one of those. So invest in yourself and getting a nice cutting board, maybe a nice big one or a couple small ones that you can have on the ready. So take a look, when I'm encouraging my clients to kind of clean out their cupboards, take a look and see, do you have any old kind of worn out cutting boards? And if you do, get rid of them and just replace them with something that you can be proud of and want to use when you're in the kitchen. While we're in the kitchen, it's kind of like anything else. When your environment is clean and inspiring, you're going to be more inspired and motivated to be in there, right? So if you've got the right tools, you've got some funky stuff that you just really love to use, you're going to be more likely to spend more time in the kitchen making these gorgeous dishes. So the 9th tool would be cutting boards. Now, moving on to number 10, a good set of pots and pans. Really, any chef will tell you that having a nice set of pots and pans is well worth the investment. I would suggest finding a high quality set that you really like and purchase one piece at a time until you have the entire set. So unless you decide to just buy the whole thing up front, that's also a great option too. Now, like kind of the knives, if you do want to invest in a high quality pots and pans set, you don't need to start with them all, right? So, definitely you want a large pot, a really nice big pot. You can get a really extra large one for pastas and things like that. But the large pots are great for cooking soups, big batches of soup. I really like a medium to large pot for doing lentils and rice. That's really important. A small pot is great for kind of a, single or double serving of oatmeals or small dishes that you just want to heat up. Definitely like to have a small pot. A steamer set is really nice to have, kind of the stackable steamer set. It's a lot more healthy to steam your vegetables if you're going to cook them than it is to boil them. Unfortunately, boiling them takes a lot of the nutrients and puts it in the water, and which you just dump down the sink. So steaming your vegetables will be a lot more healthy, and you can control how much they cook. Like I personally like gently steamed vegetables, so they're still pretty crunchy. So you can do that a lot easier with a steamer set. And then a large and a small skillet or a frying pan. So number 10, pots and pans. Number 11 is bakeware. So if you are someone who likes to bake, I grew up with grandmothers and mothers who did such an amazing job baking that I love to bake. And, when I became plant-based, I was excited to transform all my favorite desserts into vegan style. So that was a lot of fun. So I tend to bake a lot more. Although I love raw desserts, baking is amazing. So you'll want to have some nice bakeware pieces as well in your kitchen. So some of the basics you'll want to have are mixing bowls for sure, baking pans. So one large and I'd say probably 2 small baking pans would be really great. A cookie sheet is really nice. If you like to make cookies, I would say get a specific cookie sheet because it does tend to cook the cookies a little bit different than a baking pan. A muffin tin, if you love muffins, there's so many things. I often do like raw tarts in a muffin tin. So you can get a big muffin tin, a small muffin tin. And of course, you can bake your muffins in there as well. And another thing I like to have in variety of sizes is a springform pan. So I didn't really know what a springform pan was until I started making raw cheesecakes, but they're a great tin to have. So it just makes everything round and you just pop it open and it just takes it away from whatever it is that you've baked or cooked, and you've got this nice, beautiful round cake or whatever it is that you're making. So a nice set of bakeware, and this is something that you can definitely get piece by piece, right? So let's say you're like, okay, I'm going to make this brand new recipe today. I'm going to take a look at my muffin tin. Do I have one, right? Is it gross and it's old? Then, treat yourself to a new one. Okay, so number 11 is bakeware. Number 12 is different measuring tools, right? So having a good set of measuring cups and measuring spoons will be a lifesaver when you're making the perfect dish. So, I'm a big fan of using recipes. I know a lot of people that hate using recipes, but that is how I taught myself how to cook. Because I learned exact measurements. I learned what flavors go with what. I learned what you can do and what you can't do. So when you're cooking food, it's a little bit easier to have a little bit more fun in the kitchen and not always worry about exact measurements. However, baking, on the other hand, is kind of like a science that you almost have to have everything perfectly measured or it potentially could flop. Okay, so some essential measuring tools, definitely measuring cups of various sizes and measuring spoons. I would say definitely gets some of those. So number 12 would be measuring tools. Number 13, things like spatulas, wooden spoons, and flippers having, they're essential must-haves, right? Without them, you won't be able to stir, mix, or flip your delicious food. I know for many years I kind of used old spatulas or spoons and flippers that I probably had handed down from my mom or even my grandmother, but investing in a nice new set of those is just a brand new cooking experience. And again, it's about, do you feel good when you're in the kitchen? Do you feel good about the tools that you're using? And if you do, you will feel better. Just the energy around it will be so much better, right? There's just something so special about having all your favorite tools ready and waiting to be used. Then when you pick them up, you feel like you belong in the kitchen. It's these simple pleasures that will keep you coming back to the kitchen and preparing delicious, healthy, whole food meals. So number 13, a nice spatula, wooden spoons, and flippers, definitely to have. Number 14 is storage containers. A big part of making fresh meals and eating at home, in my opinion, is the leftovers. And some dishes even taste better the next day after all the spices and flavors have had time to soak in. That's why I suggest that you get a really good set of storage containers. I prefer glass to plastic. But if you are using plastic, making sure it's a high quality plastic that is a BPA free, but glass storage containers are definitely the best choice. When you use plastic, you'll notice that, let's say sauces, like a tomato sauce, potentially could actually like seep in and change the color of your storage container. So you know that if something can seep in, things are seeping out, right? Okay, so when you are choosing your storage containers, get a variety of storage containers. So small ones are perfect for storing chopped veggies, even herbs are really great. Medium containers are perfect for packing lunch for you and if you've got children, for your kids. And of course, large containers are great for storing baked goods or large batches of rice. Or big meals, let's say a shepherd's pie or something that you can use over the next few days. So 14 is storage containers. Now, one more. Now, of course, this isn't a tool for the kitchen, but I think it is absolutely an essential part of the cooking process. And that is to bring love when you're doing your cooking. Many years ago, when I was dealing with an eating disorder, I was advised to start cooking. The premise was to learn to love the food I was preparing. Learn as much as I could about the ingredients and prepare the food with love and enjoy the process to develop that deeper relationship with food. The purpose of this was so that I would learn to love the food I was putting in my body rather than hating it. The energy of love brings a light energy to the food that you can actually taste. Think about when, let's say, your grandmother or your mom or just somebody in your family that's a good cook. Doesn't it just taste different, right? It just tastes different when somebody has put pride and energy and love into their dishes. It just is a completely different taste experience. And when you make the food, so when you're, making food for the people that you love, including yourself, when you put that loving energy into the process and into the food, you're not only just feeding your body, but you're also feeding your soul. And that means a lot, of course, when we're on this exciting journey to better health and wellness. So that's it. You're all set. Now that you have all the essential tools you need for your kitchen, you're ready to get cooking. These basic tools will give you a great start to creating meals that will impress your family and friends and make being in the kitchen a fun and enjoyable experience. If you have any questions at all about my favorite tools that I've recommended or any other questions about tools in the kitchen, find me online at R.J.O Wellness and just ask me anything. Happy to help. Please also visit the show notes for this episode at rjowellness.com/podcast/episode 44 to gain access to the written transcript for this episode and any other links that I recommend. If you have any personal favorite tools for the kitchen, also let me know. What are you having fun with in the kitchen? And of course, paste them in the comments on social media at R.J.O Wellness on Facebook and on Instagram. So until next time, my friends, keep rocking your wellness. Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Rockin' Wellness Podcast. Make sure to visit my website at www.rjowellness.com, where you can subscribe to the show and check out all the show notes. While you're at it, if you found value in this podcast, if you'd simply tell a friend about it, that would help out too. You may choose to join the R.J.O Wellness community to take advantage of the freebies, courses, and coaching that will take your voyage to the next level, or support this podcast with your monthly membership. Until next time, my friends, keep rocking your wellness.